In this episode, we talk about how the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives, the importance of embodying our emotions, especially for men, and how you can start to do this today. And we looked at the different levels of love and how you can start to identify yours. Welcome to Man Quest Define Meaning, where we help men navigate modern life, find their true purpose, and redefine manhood. I'm your host, James, and each week, inspiring guests share their journeys of overcoming fear, embracing vulnerability, and finding success. From experts to everyday heroes, get practical advice and powerful insights. Struggling with career, relationships, or personal growth? We've got you covered. Join us on Man Quest to Find Meaning. Now, let's dive in. The quality of our relationships are what determines the quality of our life. Good morning, Matthew and Rebecca. Can you explain more?
Shall I make a start? Yeah, of course, James. Well, yeah, we're passionate about relationships. And I know, like, from the past, when I've been really miserable in my relationship, it's just affected me in so many different ways. You know, my energy, my motivation, my spirit, and really, yeah, when things are really not working, it can really bring you to your knees. And what I found then is that when things are really working like magic, it's just such an enabler to everything else that we're doing. So yeah, that's really why I'm so passionate about this area of relationships and why I think they're so fundamental to great mental health, great state of mind, and great outcomes in lots of areas. How about you?
I agree. When I met James, when I met Matt, he kept going on and on with this sentence. And one day I realized, oh my God, I got it. All those years of loneliness, pain, and misery in relationships, failed relationships. All of a sudden, I felt hurt by Matt saying that sentence. Because it's so true. When you have a relationship with a partner that is not working, then it affects everything else. It affects your sleep, your state of mind and emotional state at work. You get more grumpy or more you withdraw, you get angry, snappy, everything else really, your health, your digestions. Suddenly you have that food that you can't digest and intolerances and you are wondering where is this coming from? Interesting. Maybe your relationship is the source of that pain.
Yeah, I can agree with, because my own perspective of relationships is if I'm in a good place in relationships, now that might not be a healthy relationship, but I feel in a good place, that affects my energy, it affects my business, it affects how I am mentally. And so this idea that, obviously, I don't know, it's an intuitive thing, I think, but when I know it's going downhill, suddenly my energy changes. And rather than being able to focus on other stuff, your head's playing around in this circle of what's going to happen. Oh no, have I done something wrong? What am I supposed to do? What can I do? Kind of thing. Is it this kind of cycle? And so, yeah, I think you could easily probably say that if your relationship is good, then your whole life is going to have a massive, massive impact.
That's right. Exactly. Some people start overthinking a lot, like you just said, overthinking what's going on. Am I safe? Am I not safe? Do you love me? You don't love me? Or what have I done now? No matter what I do, he's never happy or she's never happy. And we just, we keep ourselves in this loop, trapped in this loop. And it affects our self-esteem. It affects our confidence. It affects our work performance, business performance. So, yeah.
And it's this idea, I think, as well. It's everybody says you need to love yourself before you can love somebody else. And I partly agree, but I partly kind of don't agree, because there's the idea that to love yourself before you can love somebody else, it's quite difficult for a lot of people because people don't know how to love. And so it's this idea that I've got to a point in my life now where I'm single. I'm quite happy being single. I've got to a point where I can love myself, but it's taken me 10 years of hard work. And so it's this idea that for an everyday person, it's a lot to do, and it can be very overwhelming. And to be able to guide yourself through all that is quite a task.
It's a great point, James. I love that way of looking at things. I think like loving yourself is something that's bandied around a lot. You hear a lot of people say, well, if you love yourself, then everything's okay. But it's a bit of a slippery one, I find, because there's a certain aspect. If we have low self-esteem, for sure, if we doubt ourselves and feel a lot of insecurity, then that might not be bad advice, to believe in yourself a bit more. But then other people like flip the other way, and they're almost like believe a bit too much in themselves. And it can turn into like an arrogance or narcissism, really. And so for people with that pattern, loving yourself more isn't really that helpful. So it just kind of, it's a bit like horses for courses, really.
Yes, I agree. I was also thinking as well, James, what you just said before about some people don't know how to love. I actually think that people have different ways of loving. Some people's ways of loving is calling their partners names, and that's the way they love. They didn't learn anything else. Some people's ways of loving is taking their partner out for a holidays just to end up having another row. But that's the way they love. And some people, the way they love is to talk about the issues that they're having and go to the bottom of it, whereas they listen to each other with curiosity and compassion. And that's the way they love. So there are different ways of loving. The question is, which one do we have? We always say we can be aligned with fear, and that's the way we're going to be loving our partners, with jealousy, insecurities, controlling patterns, or we can be aligned with love, like I said, with curiosity and compassion, where we can both grow together.
Yeah. Well, it's a perfect example with myself now. I'm literally, because it's so hot, I'm literally pouring my sweat. Now, it could be part of me who's literally says, bloody hell, what's going on? And start to give myself a lot of jip and a lot of hate because I'm sweating. But and there's the idea that rather than allowing that to kick in, say, okay, we're sweating, it's okay. And it's almost that acceptance of how we are in this moment and how we can grow that acceptance in a way that we not only just see the person for who they are, but we're able to listen on a deeper level.
James, I like that point. Definitely. I think the self-acceptance and, to be honest, acceptance of our partner. I think acceptance is a really great starting point. What people don't forget is that I can accept the person. I'm not trying to change them, but I can also still ask them to do things, maybe not do things. So we can still have a conversation. But really, when we start trying to change the other person or requiring them to do things for our benefit, then that again becomes more difficult.
I agree.
Can you tell me about yourselves?
Should we go first?
Yeah.
We work with couples and some individuals to improve their relationship. But I haven't always done this. I worked in corporate for years and years, and that was great. But I also wanted to get out and do something different. And this was a dream. And when I went through my own divorce years ago now, I had some insights like really helped me to make sense of how I'd become so stuck and unhappy for so many years. And that really led me to wanting to then share that with other people. I see so many other people struggling in their relationships, just not really understanding what it takes to have a great relationship. So then it became a personal passion to share that with people. And then when I met the incredible Rebecca, and she was already working in a similar field, working with a lot of women, but some men as well. And we thought, well, why don't we work with couples and just set this up in this way to serve people that want to really transform their relationships?
I love it. Yeah. When I met Matt, James, I was working as a therapist in London, like Matt said, and I was doing a lot of personal work on myself as well. And because I came to London, to the UK from Spain, because I was in a mess, mentally, emotionally, physically, I was just in a mess, and I need to do something. I need to change. And like you said before, I need to learn to love myself, but not like some people do, painting my nails and taking a bath and going shopping. No, actually, I need some inner work to get done. I need to forgive my parents. I need to accept my parents for everything they did, because they did in the best way that they could with the resources that they had. I need to forgive myself for not having done the best that I could have done in the past, that I wanted to have done, but actually I did the best that I could. And forgiveness was a massive thing. Acceptance, compassion, stop judging people, stop judging myself, stop judging my partners, stop trying to change my partners, learn to embrace fear, rather than just walking away from the relationship, which was my pattern. And so that's how I came to do what I do. Then I met Martin, he was all in, and that was amazing, because actually by the time I met Matt, I was working on manifesting my ideal, my dream partner. And I said to myself, well, in the past, I always wished to have an IT guy as a boyfriend who fixed my computers. But this time I got more practical, and I thought, no, actually, I want a psychologist. Because this time he will stop me from walking away from the relationship. And actually, it happened. Matt was doing his master in NLP in London, the practitioner, and I was doing mine. So we met, and I thought, this is going to be handy, or I won't make it ever in relationships. And here we are. He did a good job. I hit the nail. And now we're helping people.
What I find is that as everybody's, I think everybody after a certain age has trauma due to what's happened in the past. And I think trauma is obviously that which makes us, because quite often when you're able to identify your trauma, you're able to delve a little bit deeper into our own patterns, what triggers us, what kind of patterns really stop our relationships from working. And when we come to discover these patterns, suddenly it's, you start to change a couple of things and you start to really unravel. Because I know from my own perspective, I've been through 5 different relationships. The first one being the most painful, but each time I almost felt as though I was almost progressing on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And it's this idea that trauma is what kind of helps us to grow, helps us to become who we're meant to become. And so what was it specifically for yourselves? What kind of traumas did you have when you're younger, and how did you overcome these traumas?
Yeah, of course. Should I go first?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for me, James, I think there were patterns that I learned growing up, like just survival mechanisms, particularly like just trying to keep people happy. I think one of my key patterns was just like keeping the peace. Don't upset people. Don't have the difficult conversation. Don't have a proper boundary. Just hope for the best. And I know that it made sense in a certain way, but it also caused me a lot of problems in my relationships, particularly, and ended up, really unhappy, frustrated. And a big part of my journey has been reconnecting with that more masculine side of myself, I guess, which does have boundaries and can say no, and in a loving way and considerate way, but still clear on what I stand for and what I don't stand for. And that, I think, has been a real breakthrough for me in healing that past trauma.
Yeah.
How about you?
That's a good one, Matt. For me, my trauma, it was a lot of them, not just one. Mainly, I needed to discover, which I did with family constellation. That's why I am a family constellations therapist. I need to discover that I had a twin when I was born. I actually had a twin that was lost, and no one told me about it. So when women get pregnant, they can have twins, but one of them is born. That was me, the survivor, but the other one didn't, and no one talked about it. And I don't even know if my mother actually knows or not, but there was some evidence. And that caused me a lot of issues in my life, from suicidal thoughts. All my life I wanted to kill myself and not to be here, because unconsciously I wanted to join my twin. and depression like that as well. And I also had these feelings of abandonment because I felt unwanted, like I should not have been born, to be honest, and rejected, betrayal as well, a lot from my parents. I felt betrayed, and from yeah, there was a lot of that, and those traumas, I brought them into my relationships with my partners, where actually I was projecting my twin onto my partners, and I treated them as a little boy, and that's not right. And also, because I wanted to protect myself from when I wasn't feeling safe as a in my childhood, I actually switched substantially in certain situations from my feminine energy to my masculine energy, but in a very polarized way, which is not healthy and it's not relational. And so I would show up very masculine in my relationships. So I would tend to attract nice guys, guys that were embodying their feminine energy more than their masculine ones. And that will cause challenges in the relationships. And so, yeah, so abandonment, rejection, betrayal, loneliness, depression, suicidal thought, that was not comfortable. But if I want to choose to look at this like a gift, I think I want to, because thanks to those gifts, I am here with my best friend, best ever partner, and doing what I love, and having an amazing life. So you can choose to look at your trauma as a burden or as a gift. It depends on what you make of it. Because as I said before, our parents do their best with the resources that they have, and we can do better.
Yeah, I can relate. I was very much a nice guy. I was, and it's obviously a term which is thrown around, isn't it? Really, now you get nice guys, and you get the what's called the very toxic, very what you call them? I can't even know what to call them. But I remember in my first relationship, I would avoid conflict, and I would really avoid conflict because I know conflict really puts me into my anxious state. And so as soon as she would start raising her voices, I would cower down and not say anything. And so that's how, luckily for me, that the relationship ended. But at the same time, it's what kind of triggered me to make that commitment to completely change. And it's this idea that with the change comes new beginnings.
That's right. It's a good way to look at it. There's always a chance to learn our lesson, isn't there, James? And, maybe it's through the end, or maybe we sort of reconvene or re-establish an existing relationship in a more healthy way. But there's always a chance to rebuild and learn the lesson. The key thing for people is whether they're ready to learn that or not. Because can you see your scenario? You could have come out and just thought, well, it's all about her. She was toxic. She was this or that. And then you probably don't learn much. But it sounds like you were willing to look at yourself. So that generally is a great starting point, but it's uncomfortable. Not everyone is ready for that.
That's right.
You mentioned family constellation. What's family constellations?
Family constellations is the most powerful therapeutic modality that I know. It's so powerful. It's all based on the issues that we inherit from our biological family. And there are secrets, there are truths, hidden secrets, things that we don't know. And there can be some systemic disorder, where, for example, as I said before, James, I wasn't the third sibling as I thought. I was the fourth one, because the third was my twin. And so those things that have not been told can actually cause chronic illness, accidents, lack of fortune, like we don't get clients, we don't get a job, we can't find a job, we can't find the right partner, bad relationships, bad health, all kinds of things. And I have experienced so much of that, even accidents, to the point that I could have killed myself. Really. So family constellations looks at the hidden truths and the hidden secrets that the mind doesn't remember, but the body does. And that comes up in therapy. And it changes everything. It's just the deepest root cause that you can ever go for, really. It's so powerful. It's so simple.
Very similar to ancestral healing. Quite
Yes,
similar.
because James, exactly. Because when you free yourself from the burdens that you carried from your ancestors, because it could be that you learned some behavior from your parents or caregivers or the people around you that you grew up with, so we can get some of their burdens, and we can also get some burdens inherited in our DNA. Inherited trauma, which is a lot of science around that as well. Then when we undo those things, we have our path ahead free to just create whatever we want, rather than repeating the stories from our ancestors or repairing them or even compensating for them. We can just put all that aside and just create from the scratch our life.
Yeah, I think our parents, their parents, their parents, their parents went through so much. And to think that it's quite difficult, because when you want to heal yourself, you've got what you are now, but then you're looking at your parents, you're looking at their parents and their parents. And so if you look about 200 years ago, my family have been farmers for quite a long time. And this idea that back then there was a lot of poverty. And you can see it even in the mindset of poverty consciousness. And I think that leads from back probably 100, 200 years ago, where people were literally in poverty and people would die at a very early age. And so I think that has obviously has a massive impact with death and with loss and things like that. Now, you mentioned earlier about forgiving your parents and forgiving yourself. How did you go about doing that?
That's the problem, that people misunderstand what forgiveness really means. So how did I go about that? It wasn't like I need to say from a grandiose perspective, okay, mom, dad, I forgive you. No, because I'm not better than them. We're just different. I do it my way, they did it their way, and now we are both adults. But what I actually did was to look at them with love and compassion, understanding that they did what they did because that's all they could do at the time, whether I liked it or not, whether it was convenient for me or not. They could have not done anything else. And also, if they could have done any better, that would have been also very positive for them, for themselves, but they didn't, because they just didn't know. And that understanding, but not just understanding, but embodiment of that feeling, of that understanding, that is really healing, because forgiveness really is happens when you forgive yourself, when you free yourself from the judgment and the anger that we hold in our bodies, which are actually is causing physical illness and emotional illness as well, and all kinds of things. When we free ourselves from that judgment and that criticism and blame and anger, because we're judging our parents, you should have done this, you should have given me that, you should have not done that, I'm still waiting for an apology. When you free yourself from all that, that's forgiveness, really. So you're not doing that to your parents or to whoever you need to forgive. You're freeing yourself from the harmful chemicals that we are creating in our bodies when we hold someone in less than warm regard. And that's really forgiveness, and that's what I did.
Can I comment on that as well? I love what you're saying, Rebecca. Yeah, so, no one's perfect, are they? And I'm sure, there are people listening, they will look at what the parents have done and I find it really hard to accept, what's happened. And, I feel like in so many ways I've been really well supported by my parents, but I'm also sure that they've given up so much for me, to enable me to be sitting here right now. They could have been doing anything with all that time and energy that they put into, well, in many cases, picking up the pieces after me for whatever chaos I'd created. So I almost feel like my parents have like thrown themselves into a lot of difficulties on my behalf. So how would that sit for me to think, well, I've now got to give them my forgiveness for something? Well, no, I don't have to forgive anything. It's like, who am I? I'm just grateful that I'm here. They did their best. No one's perfect. And we learn, or we sit here and blame, and then we stay stuck. So that's our choice, really, as I see it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and also it's so funny as well, James, because sometimes we judge our parents because they did that, and surprise, surprise, we're doing the same to our children. And if we don't have children, we're doing the same thing to our inner children, inner little girl in my case, or little boy in Matt's case. We all sometimes we do self-sabotage, which is what I'm saying. We do the same things to ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves. Oh, come on, why am I so stupid? Or come on, you can do better, Rebecca, what the hell? But who was talking to me like this? And I said to myself, I will never talk like that to my children in the future. And now I'm doing it to myself, or I'm doing it to my children. So it's judgment. It's just the worst, James. Honestly, I had so many food intolerances in the past, and I could not even eat gluten. And today I was just thinking that actually I eat gluten now, and I'm totally perfect. I try to avoid it now that I've got used to not do it, but it doesn't harm me anymore. And it was the judgment, the lack of tolerance, the lack of acceptance, holding grudges, looking to the past, still stuck in the past. That's what I was saying with the family constellation, still judging what they could have done, what they could have not done. How about this? You didn't give me that. Why do my friends why all my friends have this thing from their parents, but you didn't? You actually gave me this other thing, and I didn't want it. Thank you very much. And like all these narratives, I'm stuck in the past. I'm not creating anything nice and moving forward. And then I'm blaming them. Who is doing now this to me? Them or me? Also, people can harm us sometimes once, twice, but how many times do we do it to ourselves? In our heads, the way we talk, the way so many times thinking about what happened in the past, because our body doesn't distinguish whether it's happening right now or it happened ages ago, or if I am watching a movie or if I am making a movie in my head. It is the same for the body. We are creating these chemicals in our bodies. Every time we judge, we blame, we criticize. Who is the perpetrator now? And who is the victim? Me, both. So why are we talking about this? I don't know. But how is it, James?
One of the things that I'm doing at the moment is trying to figure out what my core intention is with regards to what I'm doing with the podcast, with the business. And one thing came up was that growing up, I never had anybody to hold the parts of me that I perhaps were away from, my shadow parts, the part of me that I hated. And so there's this idea, I think in modern society, that things that you hate, you push away.
Yeah.
The one that I've come to realize with that is if you push something away like that, say, whether it's, say, for example, it's hate, or whether it's anger, or it could be impatience, I've always found it comes back 2 or 3 times harder. And you're continually judging yourself because you're always thinking, oh, I shouldn't be hating that. I shouldn't be angry. I should be nice. I shouldn't be impatient. But it's this idea that when we allow these parts in, it becomes the idea that we start to accept these parts. And it's only then when we start to accept these parts, these parts in, we can start to create embodiment exercises. So with regards to embodiment exercises, how can people really allow themselves to feel these emotions, to feel these parts of themselves that they perhaps don't want to acknowledge or they want to run away from? And what can they specifically do?
Yeah, the first thing I'd touch on, James, which I think comes under what you're describing, is meditation. So I learned meditation like years ago now, in my early 20s, and it's not an exaggeration to say that it saved my life and definitely changed my life, because I was in a mess. And what I realized, James, is that by connecting more deeply, tapping into my experience and my understanding and my whole being, is that I found myself with so many more choices than I ever imagined that I had. I just thought so many things were, that's just the way they are. And I hadn't really given them much thought. I just thought, well, that's how everyone is. That's how it's got to be. That's how the society is. And I just hadn't really given it much sort of deeper thought. Well, so I found personally for me, James, like one of the most powerful things was really allowing my mind to settle and to go deeper, to become more embodied, really more connected to the earth, you could say. And from there, it's what I realized is it's not really an exercise in like cleverness. It's not like how I probably, up until that point, I probably imagined it like a big spreadsheet. And if I could just work everything out, I'd know the answer. But then what I realized is that it's a bit the opposite of that, actually. It's almost like putting the spreadsheet to one side and just being more connected and present. And through that, the truth emerges. So that was my initial thought. How about you?
I love what Matt is saying. Meditation is huge. And I love what you said, James, about these inner parts of yourselves. That what came to my mind is internal family systems, because that's a therapeutic modality that I use a lot. And I love what you said about not pushing them away, your inner part, but actually embracing them and allowing them to be. And so an example to your question is cold showers. And I actually love cold showers. And I do it particularly when I feel very anxious and I want to not do certain things. And like, for example, when I started to do my in-person events a few years ago, I didn't want to go to my in-person event when it came today because I was anxious. No one's gonna like me, rejection, blah, blah, blah. And so I started to do the cold showers at that point because there was an inner part of myself that wanted to run away. And instead of pushing them and telling myself, oh, I should not want to run away, I would give it a place, allow it, let it stay with me, and still do it. So the cold shower was my adult self, my wise adult, me parenting that younger part of myself that got used to run away to survive in the past. And now I'm saying, hey, I'm here, I hear you, I see you, and I'm taking over the seat. I'm going to run this event. So I'm going to have this cold shower to recondition my nervous system from wanting to run away to choosing the discomfort because it's good for me and it will become comfortable at some point. And it has become. So I'm so happy I didn't give up to my in-person events. So I love that. The inner parts, yes, embracing them.
Cold shower as well. I think that would be ideal for me now because I know that the way that my body kind of processes nervousness is through sweating. And so there's this idea, even though I've done this about 100 times, there's a part of me that still feels nervous. And it's about acknowledging that part and almost bringing that part out and allowing that part to be seen. And then, so a cold shower now would be absolutely great. So you mentioned inner child. So I am a very big advocate on inner child healing and the importance of having a conversation, whether it's a conversation or a dialogue with the inner child. How do you work with your inner child and what is it that you specifically do?
Yes, so it's all about, like we said, embracing and allowing. It's all about making them right, about telling them, hey, you've done an excellent job. You've done an excellent job, and now I'm taking over. Because all our inner parts of ourselves, the part that was fighting, the part that was withdrawing, the part that was people pleasing, the part that was super self-focused on just me consciousness, and I don't care anybody else. And people call me selfish, but hey, I don't care because I'm the best. All these inner parts of ourselves are lovable, and they actually are the parts that have brought us here. We made it. We survived. So now we can actually take care of them. So we can actually step up with better strategies. And this is where coaching takes place. We can give people strategies and tools to show up in a more efficient way and more successful way, effective way. But also there's our wounded child. And maybe this is the one you are actually talking about as well. The wounded child is, or the wounded children, is all those different parts of ourselves, youngest selves. My 3 years old that got rejected when I wanted a hug from my mom, but she was busy cooking an omelet and I felt rejected. Or my 13 years old rebel and that was at school and actually felt rejected by the children because they didn't want to choose me to do some job at school. Or my 32 years old wounded self that actually felt betrayed when my ex-husband was cheating on me with another lady. And then I felt not good enough. And so all these different younger selves of us, these are our wounded children. And then what happens is that we became very creative to protect these wounds, these wounded children. And then the adaptive children were born. The fighter, the rebel, the withdrawal. And so now we can do even better and protect and take care and nurture all those different parts of ourselves.
That's
And
cool.
as an adult, with a good coaching tools, strategies, different beliefs, uncovering the beliefs and the things that are not working for us anymore, and we need to review a few things. And most importantly, James, remembering is healing. To create healing, I believe, as a therapist, we need to remember the past, but sometimes we don't because we can't remember with our mind, but our body remembers. The body keeps score, and that comes up. Those buried memories, repressed emotions come up in therapy. And remembering them and giving them a place and seeing them and honoring them, that can be enough many times. But then sometimes maybe we all also need to bring some new beliefs, empowering beliefs, and secrets that we don't know, so we can actually honor those feelings that hurt, and that's why we don't want to feel them. And that's why some people drink alcohol to numb the pain, or they exit, like I used to live in my ex-partners because I didn't want to feel rejected. So before you leave me, I leave. Thank you very much. And that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think alcohol's a big one. I choose now not to drink. I don't mind drinking, but I choose not to because I know how it makes me feel. But this idea with when I had alcohol, I would basically, with anger, when I drink, the anger would come out. So I've had to find healthy ways to express anger. Matt, how do you work with your inner child?
It's a great question. Yeah, in a number of different ways, really. I think it's really important to make sure day to day that we've got the self-awareness of which part of us is really showing up in the moment. And that's where things like not drinking can be really, really helpful, because even with the best of intentions, if we're not really aware of what we're doing, let's say if I get drunk, then who knows which part of me is going to show up? Good luck, It's just really, whereas, when I'm more aware and more present, then I can be more intentional about which part of me is showing up. And what I find is it doesn't completely avoid getting it wrong. Sometimes I can still be, overly passive or overly accommodating. All these different aspects can come out. But what I do now is I tend to pick it up much more quickly. So that's where, awareness really comes in, and compassion as well. I love what Rebecca said, all those patterns that we've got from the past, they're not because we're bad people. They're just the things that we've learned over the years to cope. Whether it is getting angry and losing my patience, or whichever pattern it is. It's not because I'm intrinsically that sort of person. It's just that that's how I've learned to cope. And then the question really is whether I'm okay to keep doing that. Is my life going to be served by just keeping doing that stuff, or do I want to evolve myself and be more of a grown up more of the time? And if I do, then I've got an opportunity.
Yeah, being a grown up is overrated, I think. Allowing your inner child to kind of come out and have fun and adventures and all kinds of different things, I think, is a great way to live. So with my own inner child, so for me, it's different, because for me, I can see internally, but I can also hear. So I've got this kind of great relationship with my own inner child. And again, sometimes it's becoming conscious, aware enough of who's showing up, because I know from my own patterns, I can slip into unconscious mode quite easily, but then something would trigger me, which would then, okay, I need to become conscious again. And it's at that point I might have said or done something which has upset the inner child. So then it's coming back to the inner child and then figuring out what exactly does he need. I call him Jimmy. So what exactly does he need? And because quite often all he needs is just some love and attention. And he's happy as Larry.
Yeah. I love, can I say, I love what you said, James. Little Jimmy needs attention. Little Jimmy needs to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel held in our arms, literally. If you could picture it, this our wise adult, our adult self, us as adults, we need resources, we need strategies, not to cope, but because we don't want to survive anymore. We want to thrive. So we want to attend our little Jimmy, but we need resources to do that. And in the past, we did the best we could with our adaptive children, our coping mechanisms, however you want to call it, drinking, becoming a rebel, fighting, withdrawing. But little Jimmy wants to feel seen. The little Jimmy doesn't want to hide. Little Jimmy wants to be there and not to, and that we don't feel ashamed of him, little Jimmy, like, oh, I should not feel like this. When we say to ourselves things like, I should not be feeling this way, what we're doing literally is neglecting little Jimmy. It's like, Jimmy, hide away, don't come up. No one needs to see you. But that's what we do to little Jimmy. When we say to ourselves, hey, I should not feel this way. I should not need this. I have too many needs. Or I should not be this way. I am too loud. That's little Jimmy crying. We need to allow and embrace and compassion. These three words are key. Allow ourselves to feel the way we feel. It's okay to feel this way. Allow ourselves to have the needs that we need. We have, it's okay. This is us. Just be authentic and real. And if we are different sometimes, so we are different. We need to make a difference in the world. We cannot just all fitting in the same, head, because we need to bring a change to the world. So little Jimmy wants to be seen, feel heard, feel held and safe. And the rest, if that happens, we're going to be okay. But for as long as we neglect little Jimmy, get ready, because chaos is knocking at your door.
Just quickly, I know women are a lot more open to this kind of stuff. And they're a lot more, I think generally they're a lot more intuitive, because they're more connected to their bodies and their own emotions. Now, for obviously the podcast I'm running, there's a lot of men listening. And so what would you say to the men out there who perhaps are a little bit like, I don't kind of believe this, or kind of are a bit stuck with regards to the inner child healing? What would you say to them?
Should I go on?
Oh, I can go as
Yeah, I would say, I'd say firstly, I mean, only only work on something if it's important to you. So if you're listening thinking, my life's great, I've got an amazing relationship, I connect great with my kids, I'm happy, I'm engaged, I'm having a lot of fun. So if everything's working, then you maybe don't need to engage with anything. Who's to say people need to engage with their inner child or anything else? The question is, if you're blocked, so you're having struggles, then could an ability to connect better with your emotion be a key to help you unlock some of those problems? Could that be a part of the answer here? And if you think it is, then, well, you could just sit and hope for the best and maybe something's going to change by miracle, or you can do some work. And you can probably guess by the way I stated that what I'm suggesting. If it is something important, then you need to get some help and unpack some of those things. And just remember, there are lots and lots of men doing that kind of work. You may not be one of them, but that's okay. That doesn't mean you can't become one of them. But it's got to be important to you. So I would just invite men to consider, would your relationship or would your life be better served by being more connected to your emotion, being able to express yourself more clearly, like from the heart, and connect with your partner? And if you feel that would be good for your relationship, then maybe you need to do something about it.
I love that. I would say, James, for those guys listening to this podcast, if you want to be a real man, you need to start feeling, because a real man feels. It's a human, and humans have emotions. Humans are emotional beings, and I've seen a lot of guys dating and having sex after having sex, and they still don't feel alive. They don't have enough. And why? Because they're trying to feel alive by having sex, but actually the only way they're gonna make themselves feel alive is by connecting emotionally with other people. And the reason why they don't connect emotionally with other people is because in the first place, they're not connected to themselves. They're disconnected. And when we feel, our body is giving us such a critical information about whatever we need to do differently, stop doing, do differently. And we're not listening to the message because we're disconnected, we're frozen, we're not feeling. And why does that happen? Because, for many men, when they are born, they just teach them that don't cry, be strong, be a man, da. And then emotional connection doesn't happen in relationships, but not just with the partners, with children, even customers, at work. They're disconnected, and they need to give themselves permission to feel, to cry, to be genuine, to be authentic, and to be real. Otherwise, they're like AI robots dressed up in human flesh.
I just want to add as well, James, a bit about addiction, if I may. There's a lot of people where, we sort of pick up bad habits and then it becomes a bit of a cycle. Let's just take porn as an example, but it could be any sort of like drugs and you know what, there's like research around this that says like the reason people get into that stuff is because they don't have a sort of a rich and varied and high quality emotional life. What they have is a situation that isn't fulfilling. I was reading this research about rats in a cage, and they put these rats in isolation and give them an opportunity to get addicted to something. And guess what they do? They get addicted. Whereas when they put the same rats into what they call rat park, where there's like lots of fun stuff to do and lots of other cool rats to interact with, they're not interested in the addictive substances. They meet their needs in other ways. So yeah, if that resonates, then it may come out in that way as well, when we're not fully connecting properly with the world around us.
I love it. Exactly. Yeah. I was also thinking, James, about emotional capacity, which is so important in relationships. But as I said, with everybody, not just intimate relationships. Emotional capacity, the ability to give love, feeling love, to share your feelings, express your feelings, but also the ability of receiving it with empathy. And that's key. And it's not going to happen if we are suppressing our feelings, because we're telling ourselves that we should not feel, because we should not share these feelings, because it's not manly. But what is manly? Maybe we need to redefine what manly is. And Women, I can tell you, James, women absolutely freaking love a vulnerable man, a man who is able to share their feelings. It's powerful, it's unique, it's not abundant. That's a gem. And it's also very nice to for the children of vulnerable men who embrace their emotions, so they can have a role model, a healthy role model of the healthy masculinity.
Thanks for tuning in to Man, A Quest to Find Meaning. If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to reflect, then take a step. Remember, real growth comes from action, not just insight. If you found value in this episode, share it with a friend, leave a review, or reach out and let me know what resonated. Your feedback helps shape the journey we're on together. For more conversations like this, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn for updates, tools, and upcoming guests. Remember, it's not about having the answers, it's about daring to look.